I had done with a group of people the Rag, which is one of the first underground papers, then started the SDS paper, then lived in New York and did the famous Rat Subterranean News, came back to Austin about '73, and Michael Aiken, who had won the editorship of the Texans, said, let's start a paper. And so we did. We spent about 6 months raising money. Guys like Bud Shrake, the screenwriter, wonderful man, writer, gave us $5,000 after he sold the screenplay. I said, gee, Bud, I don't think we'll ever be able to pay this back very quick. He said, yeah, I know. Pass it on. So that's been my philosophy of life. People did favors for me, and I try to do it for them.
I could tell the moment that I saw him, he was nothing but the troublemaking kind.
The Sun we thought was necessary because the only media really in print was the Statesman, and it was business establishment, right wing. There were really significant issues going on, the environment, the South Texas nuclear plant, various sexual issues, drugs. Lots of people were getting arrested and put in jail for various drug offenses that didn't seem to make sense. So mostly all the issues that exist today were still were current then, but all the media in Austin was corporate right wing.
Can hide down in the alley with your hat over your eye, wear a wig or mustache.
A lot of people said this. I was lucky. I was a terrible editor, but I had all those great writers. But the truth is, you keep the door open, writers keep coming in, and 1 out of 20 really has something. The Sun had a lot of people like Michael Ventura that had been published before. Big Bore Medlin, another one that was a writer that earned his living thereafter, went to entertainment and became the head of the writers division at Entertainment TV. Started, he was back from Vietnam and this colorful guy, and write it down, write these funny sports stories. Bill Bentley, another one, he went out to be a vice president or something like that of Warner Brothers, and he was a music writer, wrote these kind of Zen Cohen reviews of albums and things. Margaret Moser, another one, came in the doors, 17, 18, I don't know how old. Said, I want to follow this band backstage. Okay, well, I'll get you a backstage pass and see if you can pull it off, and she pulled it off. Margaret Moser became one of the mainstays of the Chronicle later. So there was many writers that got their start at the Sun and went on to be writers in America afterwards. I would always tell the writers, there's no formula like they teach you in college. Go read E.E. Cummings. Go read advertising. Any way to assemble words on a paper that communicates what you're trying to communicate is good writing. We weren't that adventurous, but we certainly would break rules, and the writing was getting more in the tempo of the times as opposed to the longer didactic and strung out sentences of the contemporary press of the time. Newspaper, it's more a happening. You create an environment where you attract lots of really, really bright people, and they'll cook up all kinds of things that can't be anticipated. And at its best, the Sun was a beautiful meal cooked up by a lot of different people.
I said, all you kids from Texas, go so big and tall. All you kids from Texas, go so big and tall. All of you like to roam in that cheaper hall. Get high, everybody get high. 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 Have you
the Sun was always difficult because we never had enough money, and we always spent more than we should have, which meant that everybody worked for sort of symbolic wages. But it was published for 4 years. Finally, I got an investor who was a real estate guy, who was supposedly a liberal real estate guy, and he bought up more control than I had and Aiken had, and he took the thing over. Told me I was a lousy manager because I didn't have a time clock. And I said, no artistic people work on time clocks. And he said, well, he came in there at 9 in the morning and nobody was there. And I said, well, that's true, but if you come at 1 at night, the place is just, everybody's working away. They're working different hours than he was used to. I got ousted, wound up going to California and editing the LA Free Press right off, and he took it over, and very shortly it was out of business. Because if you're getting artistic underground people, you got to trust them and let them happen. And that's the secret of editing a creative paper like The Sun. South Austin Museum of Popular Culture exhibit is important because people's history are erased, and you get lots of official history. And there's a whole verbal mythology that goes with the time, and that era was quite different. The rehearsals for the apocalypse, the Austin Sun years, 74, 78. Very different time, and I think it's real important for people to learn their own history. There were a great number of issues basically involving people's freedom, and the Sun would cover them. Some of it would go national. Pretty important. Myth and history, if it's not recorded but rather erased by the pop culture, then we lose our power, because we don't know that organizing and rebelling is possible. In this era, there was a big revolt against the ethos, which was that you could conquer nature. So if you think of skyscrapers, Hoover Dam, nuclear power plants, it's all based on kind of the engineering model. We'll dam up the rivers, we'll do all this, we'll perfect nature. And we all hearken back to the Plains Indians, who thought that the idea of owning the land was crazy, and you were stewards of the land, and you were passing through, and you were part of nature. You were connected to the land. And that's something that we were very aware of. And that was a really fundamental philosophical debate that's still going on, though more and more people understand they're part of nature, they're not able to dominate nature. And so when we organized in any number of ways, and there was protests, we were showing that people could live outside of the established rules. We believed that there were not a counterculture, but many different kinds of cultures in a multi-tribal kind of society where lots of people could enjoy themselves, and you didn't have to be a straight 9-to-5 business type to be successful. Interestingly, it's gotten more difficult now to be outside of the system because of the economics. Then a person could work about 20 hours a week and survive. There was lots of big old houses, and you get a room in a big old house very cheaply. You could work some kind of job 20 hours a week and have the rest of your time. Now, most people have to work a job and a half, or 3 people are living in an efficiency, or that sort of thing. The economics are much more difficult now, and therefore people can't dream as big. It's important when we think about this era of the Austin Sun that people had big dreams. They thought still they could change things in fundamental ways, and in many ways we did. We changed consciousness, but we didn't take over institutions.